Today, Professor Dr. Manoj Kumar will discuss on the topic of the method and procedures used while loading and discharging cargo. This topic is in the syllabus of the global logistics and the warehousing management of the course throughout the world. Section 1, Loading Cargo. Introduction. The first two sections of the chapter covers the loading and discharging of the general cargo vessel. Special attention is given to the different methods of the securing cargo as well as careful handling procedure to prevent damage. Administrative loading. The majority of the vessels are administratively loaded. Administrative loading is used in a non-combat situation. It makes maximum use of a ship's cargo carrying capability. In administrative loading, equipment and supplies are discharged and sorted before they can be used. Cargo loaded administratively can be discharged at a single port or the multiple port. In loading for a single port of the discharge, cargo planners stow supplies to make maximum use of the carrying capacity of a ship. In loading vessels for the multiple port discharge, cargo planners store supplies for more than one destination so that the items can be discharged in order to arrival at the ship's scheduled ports of the discharge. Personnel must be take care at the original and intermediate loading ports to prevent stowing cargo on top of other cargo that will be discharged sooner. Cargo handling operation. Containerization is a general term that describes the transportation of goods in specially designed containers so that the loose product, small packages, high value items, and high value density cargo are unitized for easier handling. Containers can be moved aboard, and most cargo ships, however, movement aboard full container ships offer the greatest system efficiency. Containerization has changed every aspect of the cargo movement. Cargo handling operations are no exception. The basic function of the cargo handler is to handle cargo between the terminal and the vessel. This function has not changed, but the manner in which it is accomplished and the equipment used have undergone a dramatic change. Full container ships are specially designed to carry containers. The first ships used to carry containers are the conventional vessels converted to partial or full container ship, usually self-sustaining. The latest container ships are not self-sustaining. Conventional ships can carry limited numbers of the containers, but only as the conventional cargo, which means containers are heavy lift for most conventional vessels. Partial container ships are equipped to handle containers and the break bulk cargo. Only ships with a capacity of the at least 20-foot containers are considered partial container ships. General cargo is still handled in the conventional manner, and in some trade routes, this remains the predominant method. Some cargo will always remain as general cargo commodity. As containerization increases in a port, cargo mix in the general cargo operation undergoes change. Package cargo gradually disappears into containers, and the larger, harder to handle on low revenue cargo remains. With this specialization in a specific commodity, it becomes economically necessary to improve the handling method previously employed. New general cargo ships have replaced with the conventional 5-ton capacity cargo gear with the cranes of the 20-ton capacity or more. Paper pulp and the newsprint are handled with a special multiple ceiling arrangement, while handles several rolls in single hoist. Steel products and pipes are similarly handled. For the package cargo, utilization has eliminated almost all hand stowage in the vessel. Special squeeze lifts handle cotton and other solid whale commodity. A special sling permit the utilization of the bagged cargo. Two different types of the cargo cages are used for handling palletized or the unitized loads. Stowage of the different types of the cargo. Many types of the cargo are stored aboard the vessel. This paragraph discusses how to store palletized cargo, heavy lift, non-unitized cargo, and the refrigerated cargo. Palletized load. Palletized unit loads are formed on general purpose four-way entry pallets. A palletized unit loads may not be more than 52 inches long, 43 inches wide, and the 54 inches high, including the pallet. The gross weight may not exceed 3,000 pounds. The cargo may overhang and the pallet no more than 2.2 inches on each and 1 2 inches on the east side, and the palletized unit load will occupy approximately 70 cubic foot of the shipping space. The cargo and pallet are securely bound together with adhesives and or various types of the bending. A common method is to use 5 steel straps around both cargo and the pallet. 2 are spaced equally and placed longitudinally, and 3 are spaced equally and placed transversely. When a small number of the palletized loads are stored, the best location is the square of the batch. However, if the volume of the palletized cargo is great, it must be stored in the ends and wings. Unlike heavy lifts, pallets are not designed for the dragging, although pallets can be dragged into the wings and the ends. Dragging is time-consuming and dangerous and causes excessive damage to the cargo. The following methods are recommended for placing palletized cargo in the under-deck stowage. If there is sufficient headroom for forklift to maneuver, they may be used as follows to stow palletized cargo. Place the required dunnage in hatch. Usually little dunnage will be necessary since the pallet itself serves as a dunnage, but some dunnage may be needed for leveling of padding, obstruction, and so forth. Hoist a forklift into the hatch. Short mast, pneumatic tired forklift should be used. Place the pallets in hatch so that the SS solid faces in a direction requiring a minimum of the forklift maneuvering. Using the forklift, engage the load and proceed to the place of the final stowage. If pallets cannot be tied under the deck because of the insufficient headroom clearance, it is often possible to load one pallet on top of another in the square of the hatch and move both pallets into the final stowage position with the forklift. Use filler cargo or choking to take out the sewer at the bottom of the hatch and to fill in any voids created by the shape of the cargo. Stanchions or other fittings. Filler cargo must be of a type that will not be easily damaged. Place the required dunnage in the hatch. Usually little dunnage will be necessary to hinge since the pallets itself has a dunnage, but some dunnage may be needed for the leveling of padding, obstructions, and so forth. Hoist a forklift into hatch. Short mast, pneumatic tired forklift should be used. Place the pallet in the hatch so that the across roads face in a direction requiring a minimum of the forklift maneuvering. Using the forklift, engage the load and proceed to a place of final stowage. If pallets cannot be tied under the deck because of the insufficient headroom clearance, it is often possible to load one pallet on top of the another in the square of the hatch and move both pallets into the final stowage position with the forklift. Use filler cargo or choking to take out the sewer at the bottom of the hatch and to fill in any voids created by the shape of the cargo. Sanctions or other fittings. Filler cargo must be of a type that will not be easily damaged. If it is necessary to operate a forklift on top of the unitized cargo, dunnage of the entire hatch with the 2 layers of the dunnage, one fore and aft and one athwartship, making floors solid. Pallet jackets may be used to move palletized cargo into final storage position under deck. Since pallet jacks cannot tire cargo, it will be necessary to store one tire at a time. Dunnage must be laid between the views so that the pallet jacks can be maneuvered. Palletized cargo may be moved into the final storage position by the roller conveyors. The roller conveyors are laid from the square of the hedge to the storage position. The draft is landed on the conveyors and rolled into the position. Conveyor sections must be lifted after each draft. One section of the roller conveyor can be inverted so that the rollers are next to the deck or the dunnage. The conveyor is spotted so that it is pointing in the direction of the storage. The draft is landed on the inverted conveyor and the roll into the storage position. The draft must be lifted so that the conveyor can be removed. The truck dolly or the pallet dolly may also be used in the same manner as the inverted roller conveyor. Palletized cargo may be moved into final storage position by means of a wooden or metal single type roller. Heavy lift. The storage of the heavy lift, such as a tracked vehicle, takes place every day in the terminal operation. A heavy lift is any single package, pallet, unitized or containerized, then that weight 10,000 pounds or more. Before heavy lifts are loaded, cargo handlers should prepare the holds to receive the cargo. Dunnage material should be assembled for securing the lifts, blocks, shackles, drag lines, bars, and other necessary equipment beforehand. These materials should be loaded into the hold before the first lift is hoisted aboard. Cargo handlers should check all gear before picking up a heavy lift. Cargo handlers must use tag lines on all heavy lifts. All personnel must stand clear of a heavy lift coming into the hatch until it is lowered to within a few inches of the deck. Personnel can then assist in steadying the lift for the handling. Operators can move tackled vehicles such as a tank, crawlers, cranes, and bulldozers from the square of the hedge to their storage position by the track lines. The tracks are barked or released to control the movement and direction of the vehicle. Only experienced operators of the heavy equipment are permitted to steer tracked vehicles. When stowing tracked vehicles in the hold, cargo handlers will stow tracked vehicles in a fore and aft position wherever possible. Leave multi-fuel vehicles in the neutral gear with the brake engaged. Leave gasoline-driven vehicles in gear with the brake engaged. Lock turrets on tanks and cabs on cranes or lash them in the position. A double solid floor of the planking not less than 2 inches thick must be constructed and nailed down before the tanks, bulldozers, or cranes are loaded. When tanks are stored in between dock, similar flooring is laid. Operators should be secure tracked vehicles weighing less than 80 tons with at least 4 by 6 inch lumber. Those vehicles weighing more than 80 tons should be secured with at least 6 by 8 inch lumber. Cargo handlers should lace all tracked vehicles, whether stored on deck or the below deck, with wire, rope, or the chain. Use vehicles, builders, and slings to hoist wheeled vehicles aboard ship. These vehicles are landed in the hold to lay head in the direction of the stowage. After they are landed, one person releases the brake and steers the vehicle while it is pushed into stowage position. If the vehicle cannot be pushed into position by hand, a drag line is set up. If it is necessary to move one end of the vehicle sideways to stow it in the desired port, use one of the following methods. Place dunnage smeared with the skid compound or grease under the wheels on the end of the vehicle to be moved. Dunnage is laid down in the direction of the move. Operators set up a drag line at the ends of the vehicle or dragged to the desired spot. Use heavy-duty rolling jacks to move the end over if applicable. Operators will stow vehicles fore and aft whenever possible, as in the case of the tracked vehicle, stowing them fore and aft lessens the chance that will break loose when the ship rolls in the heavy seas. When it is necessary to show them authorship, you should obtain permission from the vessel's master or representative. When securing vehicles stored Overseas cargo handlers must set the brakes on the vehicle, block the vehicle at both sides and at both the ends so that it cannot move in any direction. The size and type of vehicle will be dictated and size of the timber to use. Brass individual vehicles to the bulkheads, stanchion or other vehicles blocking. Use lacing in addition to blocking and brassing. Vehicles must be laced with wire rope. Put blocks under bumpers or chassis to keep tension of the spring. Large pieces of the cargo, such as a walk-in refrigerator or decontamination units, are often shipped in the large cases. The main problem in stowing large heavy cases is moving them from the square of the haze to the place of the stowage. This can be accomplished by the following methods. Land and case onto rollers when possible. Make sure it is landed to head in the direction of the stowage. Remove the sling on the side next to the combing. By topping, lowering, or winning the booms, move the head of the bottom in the direction of the stowage. At the same time, put a stand on the sling still attached to the case. The case will be then moved in the desired direction until the sling or cargo block is stopped by the combing. Personnel should normally remove rollers before placing the case in the final stowage location. If further movement is necessary, use a drag line. Land will constructed cases of the cargo weighing of up to 7 or 8 tons on rollers and move into the position with the crowbars and the wedge point bars. Positions the cases, dunnage, runway smeared with the skid compound, soap or the grease when rollers are not available. Then move the cases into position with the drag line. Non-unitized cargo. In today's shipping society, cargo is shipped either in the containers or unitized on pallets or the quick loading and unloading of the vessel. However, circumstance may dictate the cargo be unloaded aboard a vessel in a non-unitized configuration. Non-unitized cargo may consist of the following items. Number one, bagged cargo. The procedure for protecting, loading and stowing bagged cargo are listed below. To prevent water damage, bagged commodities such as cement should be stored away from moist cargo or cargo that sweats. Bags also must be protected from any direct contact with the metal. Use mats, paper or other protective material to protect the cargo from moisture running down the ladders, frames, stanchion and so forth. When bagged cargo is loaded aboard a vessel on which no dunnage is used between the bags and the wooden cargo battens, the bags should be stored on their ends in the wings of the ship. This will prevent them from protruding over the battens and coming in contact with the most metal of the hull plating. Don't allow the bags to overlap the stringer plates of the beams or similar obstruction in the holes. If the bags are allowed to overlap, vessel motion could cut them. Vertical dunnage placed against ladders and hatch buttons will normally protect bag from the falling or the chafing. Cargo handlers should never use handbooks to handle paper bagged cargo. Bagged cargo is stored in tiers across the hold. Cargo handlers may use any of the following three general methods for stowing bagged cargo. The full bag method provides good ventilation but provides an unsuitable stow. Unless required for some reason, this is the least desirable method of stowing bagged cargo. The half bag method is used where the floor ventilation is not important and bags are the soft. The cross tier method is used at the corners out rows to prevent the collapsing or shifting of the stacks of the bagged cargo. Dunnage around the ladder protects the bag. The bulkhead prevents shifting and the cross tier method of the stowing prevents collapsing. Bailed cargo. The procedure for handling bailed cargo is listed below. Bailed cargo is easily damaged by the chafing To prevent chafing, use flat board dunnage underneath. Belt since dunnage with the sharp edge to wood cut through the belt wrapping. Dunnage all metals part in the hole to prevent damage from the moisture. Bales stored in the wings of the hold are frequently placed on end so that only the outside layers of the cargo will be damaged if moisture condenses on the side of the ship or should chafing damage the bales. Refrigerated cargo topics discussed in this paragraph include number one, stowage types of the refrigerated cargo, containers receiving refrigerated cargo, frozen product, chill product. Stowage stowing refrigerated cargo does not differ greatly from that of the general cargo, except that the refrigerated cargo requires more care with the temperature and ventilation, and normally it is not palatine. Foods having a strong odor should not be mixed with those having a tendency to absorb odors. All cargo department must be at the prescribed temperature before loading to prevent the refrigerated cargo from thawing or the spoiling. Perishable cargo is divided into three general classes: frozen, chilled, and air cooled cargo. Representatives of the port vegetarians must be present at all times during the loading to inspect the condition of the cargo and correctness of the stowage and to monitor temperatures. Types of the refrigerated cargo. Food products comprise and majority of the refrigerated cargo. All the other commodity such as medicine, drugs, and certain temperature sensitive chemicals are often transported in this manner. Items shipped under refrigeration must cannot withstand long period of exposure to the normal outside air temperature or other conditions that might result in the deterioration and ultimate loss of the commodity. This applies whether the cargo is loaded in containers or is transported by the conventional break bulk stowage in the ship's refrigerated cargo spaces. Containerization is a very effective method of transporting refrigerated cargo. Continuous refrigeration between the point of origin and destination and the elimination of the multiple handling required in the conventional break bulk shipment have drastically reduced in transit damage and loss of these products. The advantage of one handling at one point of the loading and point of the discharge are especially apparent when compared to the conventional cargo system, which is multiple handling. From warehouse to rail to truck, through the terminal and the aboard ships, discharge at port at destination, and reloading again to truck or rail for final delivery. Each handling is labor intensive, increases the potential for damage and loss, and interprets the refrigeration process. Received refrigerated cargo. The receiving process in the terminal is critical and must be performed under systematic control. Many shipping contractors employ experienced cargo surveyors who are present during the receiving process to ensure that cargo is received in the proper condition for the shipment, to ensure that the cargo is properly stored on containers or aboard ship, and to ensure that the cargo does not remain in open storage in the terminal without the refrigeration or an expected period of the time. General rules for the stowing cargo. One objective of the copper stowage is to ensure that the cargo arrives at the destination undamaged. The other objective is to put as much as you can in the available space. Personnel should take the following action to reduce the cargo damage. Ensure the cargo hold area is clean before the stowing cargo. If the hatch is not cleared, pieces of the wood from the broken crates may get under the pallets when they are put into the storage position. A lopsided pallet may cause the whole shipment of the cargo to shift when the ship is at sea. Cargo handlers should show cargo so that the strongest structure of an item will bear the greatest pressure and weight of that item. Use dunnage only in the required quantity. Stop cargo damage by the following instruction on the label, such as use no hooks, this side up, don't drop, and so forth. If it is necessary to walk on top or land draft on cargo such as a cardboard cartons, light by constructed case, bags, carrots, place a layer of the dunnage over the cargo to protect it from the damage. Too often maximum use of the hold's carrying capacity. Cargo handlers should minimize broken stowage by careful pre-stowage planning so that the cargo will fill the hold without leaving large empty spaces. Proper supervision during the loading to ensure correct stowage and fit of the irregularly shaped package. Maximum use of the filler cargo where empty space occurs. Nesting of the cargo to use space that would otherwise be wasted. Avoiding excess dunnage. Using dunnage for false decks to permit the additional stowage. Securing of the cargo. The shifting of the cargo during a voyage results in the considerable damage to the cargo and the ship. To prevent this damage, cargo handlers must use good stowage practices, including the proper use of the lacing and the dunnage. Other means of the securing cargo include soaring, tomming down, blocking, and the brassing. All deck cargo must be laced in addition to being sewed, blocked, and the brassed. Cargo stored below deck can usually be secured by the soaring, blocking, and brassing with the timbers firmly wedged and nailed for the lace. Cargo handlers should ensure that cargo is secured when a vessel is sailing in convoy and the master is not permitted to alter course or speed to avoid rough seas or foul weather. Since convoy sailing also exposes deck cargo to the greater hazard, personnel should be give attention to the type, strength, and number of the lacing. Lacing as a means of the securing. Lacing is the means of the securing vehicles and other cargo by using wire ropes, chains, steel bars, and turnbuckles. Lacing material. Responsible personnel should select lacing material based on their ability and the type of the cargo to be secured. Wire rope 5 by 8 inch in diameter is used most frequently for heavy cargo and large item. Chain is often used for securing lumber and extremely heavy objects on the deck. The most common size chain is the 3.4 inch in diameter. Wire rope may also be used for this type of the cargo. Steel or wrought iron bars are exceptionally good for securing boxed or the rectangular cargo. Steel strapping is also used for lacing. Turnbuckles or other tightening devices are used with all types of the lacing to permit the tightening en route. Storage. Cargo handlers store lacing material in the port dunnage yard along with the dunnage. Inventory control procedure are set up for these materials so they are always on hand when a vessel is ready for the loading. Basic lacing procedure for the general cargo. The methods used to lace cargo will vary because of the different types, size, and shapes of the cargo that must be shipped. Cargo handlers may use any of the following procedure to secure cargo. Pass one or more lacing over the top of the item. This method is the least desirable because it is most ineffective for opposing centrifugal force. The cargo simply slides back and forth under the lacing. Pass two or more lacing completely around the item. This type of the lacing provides greater resistance to the forces exerted athwart the ship. It prevents the cargo from moving without exerting strain on the lacing. This is the more effective of the two methods. Combine one of the above methods with dunnage or saddles at each corner. This prevents the lacing from cutting into the cargo. Don't use lacing unless the following facts are taken into consideration. All component parts of the lacing material are of the approximately equal strength. Since the tension that the lacing bears is governed by the weaker part, it is a waste of the material to use a turnbuckle half the strength of the wire rope. A lacing may cut into the cargo it secures if nothing is used to separate the two. Use dunnage for protection if saddles are not available. Because a lacing exerts compression on the cargo it secures, extra brassing is necessary to prevent crushing. Winding a continuous length of the wire rope around an item several times is a poor method because a break at any point will make the entire lacing useless. Use two or lacing instead. For all type of lacing, items such as wooden capping, angle iron, or similar material should be used to prevent the wire ropes or chain from cutting through the edge of the case. Securing dock cargo. The weather deck is used to store cargoes that is too large to go through the hatches or when there is no room below the deck for storage. Whatever the region, deck cargo is loaded last and discharged first. This prevents cargo from being lifted high to the pass it over the deck cargo and to give the handling personnel a clear view of the operation area. Cargo protection. Cargo handlers should protect cargo loaded on deck as much as possible from the damage by the seawater. Strips of the dunnage are laid on deck to receive cargo, to allow removal of the slings and to protect cargo from water on the deck. Prevention of the equipment blockage. When a large quantity of the cargo is to be stored on the deck, personnel must avoid blocking of the equipment. It is good practice to outline the equipment in chalk to draw attention to it. The equipment include beads and the chalks. Some sounding pipes to the bridges and the ballast tanks, handles of the valves controlling of the operation of the overtide bulkheads or piping system, any other equipment essential to the safe operation of the vessels. Other means of the securing cargo. The use of the dunnage alone will not meet safety requirements and completely protect the cargo from damage. Special constructions may be required to properly stow and secure cargo. These special constructions are known as blocking and bracing. Blocking is the placing timbers or block next to the sides and ends of the cargo to prevent horizontal movement. Bracing does what it implies. It brasses, supports, or the reinforces the blocking and strengthens the pressure applied against the cargo. The blocking must to be braced to be the effective blocking bracing normally done by placing timbers between a unit of the cargo and the bulkhead or between the two units of the cargo. Soaring is supporting of the subject by bracing them from below. Soaring is the in the between the deck and the lower heads can increase the deck load capacity of the average ship about the 4 times. This increase makes it possible for the main dock to carry loads such as locomotive weighing up 2000 12,000 pounds per square feet. Toming is the brassing an atom by holding it down from above. This method may be used when stowage space not been completely filled. Also, toming may be used when there is danger that the motion of the vessel might cause the cargo to shift. The maximum effective length of the timber used for brassing, soaring, and the toming is equal to the 80 times with their minimum dimension. For example, if a piece of timber is the 4-inch thick and 6-inch wider, its maximum effective length is the 10 feet. Bulkheading refers to the use of the vertical partition made of the dunnage to keep cargo from the shifting or keep it away from the hot bulkheads. Cribbing is the use of the dunnage for blocking in the cargo compartment to illuminate void space. Cribbing is used to fill vacant space as a precaution against shifting and to maintain a level tire so that the other cargo may stored on top. Magazines are special containers required by the federal and coast guard regulation for stowing certain classes of the explosives. These containers, known as a Class A magazines, ensure adequate segregation and protection of the explosive. Magazines may be constructed of either steel or wood, depending upon the quantity and compatibility of the explosive. For construction of these magazines, refer to this one. Section 2, discharging cargo. Deck cargo. Cargo handlers unload deck cargo first. Even a deck cargo that will not interfere with the discharge of the hatch is removed first to provide more room to work on the deck. Of course, cargo that is destined for another part of coal is not discharged. All lacing material is removed from the ship unless other instructions are given so that the lacing material may be found easily. Later, cargo handlers will coil or tie off wire rope. Take it to show the size of the rope. If the wire is to be stored for a long time, it may be duplicated and boxed. Place wire of the same diameter and approximately the same length on reels if the amount of the lacing received warrants such action. Open truck buckles, sort by size, lubricate and place them in bins or boxes marked with the size of the turnbuckles. Remove staples and replace fins. Sort the shackles by size and place them in boxes for being smart with the size of the shackles. Remove blocking material from the ships. Clean and sort it so that it will not available when needed. Discharge do not material. Cargo in holds. Keep the cargo in the hold as level as possible during discharge. Breaking out cargo stacked higher than reach or tunneling under other cargo is very dangerous. General cargo, drummed cargo, and the barrel cargo are loaded in the wings and ends of the wedge. Vehicles and heavy lifts are loaded in the square. When discharging cargo loaded in this manner, cargo handlers should build tables or platforms up in the square of the hedge near the combing so that the cargo can be handled without the damaging it or injuring personnel. These tables should be constructed of the lumber or the pallet board. When pallet boards are used, do not is laid down on top of the pallet to make a solid floor for personnel working on the table. For light cargo, tables are necessary only until enough cargo has been removed to enable personnel to stand down on the cargo and pass it down. For handling heavy cargo, such as a spallette in the barrels or the pole in drums, personnel should use tables until the cargo can be handled from the deck without having to reach for it. As cargo is discharged from the vessel, it is normally moved away from the pier. Terminal clearance. Cargo handlers are responsible for terminal clearance. To perform these tasks successfully, follow these guidelines. Cargo should not be allowed to accumulate on the pier. These hinders discharge and can eventually bring the operation to a standstill. Accumulated cargo is also subject to damage and pilferage. Clear cargo from the terminal as quickly as possible. Load the cargo directly onto trucks and trailers or heavy equipment for delivery. This method is a fast and efficient way to clear the terminal and pier because the cargo is handled only once. If quantity of cargo belonging to the several services are unloaded, clearance carriers are lined up on the tier according to service. Operators then transport draft of cargo to the carriers from the hold using forklifts. Cargo tallying method. Checking cargo involves two general functions: inspecting cargo for quantity, condition, and identifying marks, making observation a matter of record. The second function is referred to as a tallying. Any method of tallying cargo may be used that quickly provides an accurate and legible cargo count. The cargo count is recorded on a tally sheet. A tally sheet may be a TCMD, a computer printout, or locally produced from. The best method for tallying one type of cargo, such as a boxes or rations, may not be the most accurate method for another type of the cargo, such as a serially numbered vehicles or individually numbered package. To satisfy various requirements for tallying methods are in general used in the army: package, unit, block, and the state. Package method. The different packaging methods are listed below. When the TCMD indicates more than one piece of the cargo was shipped under the same TCN and each piece of the cargo has its own label, the tallying cargo is used. When using this method, the cargo checker lists each piece number on his tally sheet. As each numbered piece is discharged, he crosses out the corresponding number on his tally sheet. For example, piece 1, 3, and 5 of the 5-piece shipment have been loaded. They are marked up as follows. The piece number and the total number of pieces are shown at the bottom of the address level. If a piece is damaged or missing, the checker draws a circle around the appropriate piece number and identify it as a short or damaged. For example, if pieces 1, 3, and 5 pieces shipment and loaded intact, piece number 2 is damaged and piece 4 is missing, and tallying sheet would like this. As a result of the marking or the shipping error, two pieces may bear the same number, making one of the pieces excess. In this case, the number of the extra piece will also be recorded on the tally circled annotated over. For example, if the shipment had two pieces labeled with the number 3, the second number would be tallied as follows. Unit method. Equipment such as trucks, tanks, MIL vans, sea vans, and other large serial numbered items that are handled separately are usually tallied by the unit method. The lower portion of the TCMD contains trailer data to describe the vehicle and include its serial number. The cargo checker compares the serial number stamped on the vehicle with the serial number recorded in the trailer data line entry. If they correspond, a check mark is placed on the tally to indicate the vehicle has been received. Under certain circumstances, the description of the item may not be included as a trailer data line entry. In this case, the checker enters such identifying information on the tally. Block method. The block model provides a rapid means of telling when items of the same commodity are being loaded or unloaded in uniform draft consisting of an equal number of pieces. This method requires the cargo checker to determine the number of pieces in each draft, which he records in the parenthesis in the left margin of the tally sheet. As each draft is transferred, the checker enters a finally mark adjacent to the number. Recording these 4 vertical marks and 1 diagonal mark may make a quick determination of the total number of the draft handle. If 7 drafts of the 48 cases have been trailed as indicated by the 6 vertical marks, as 1 diagonal they mark, the number of the pieces contained in a partial draft must be counted and added to the tally mark. In this case, the total 382 cases. State method. When general cargo with different amounts in each draft is involved, the checker could not use the other 3 methods but must use the state tally method. The state method requires the checker to make an individual count of each piece in each draft. He enters this count on the tally sheet as each draft is transferred. Figure 4.7. Tally, break, bulk cargo. There are a number of the different types of the trans-shipping function which require the checking and tallying of the cargo, including rail, truck, air, and inland barrage transfer operation. The unloading of cargo vessels in the overseas POD is the function of the terminal service company. Discharge operation at the POD are the largest type of all trans-shipping function. To illustrate the use of the DD from the 1384 as a cargo tally sheet, a description of the steps involved in the moving, break, bulk cargo through an overseas port is provided. Step 1. Adverse manifest. Upon completion of the vessel loading, the POE transmits the ocean cargo manifest data to designated POD. The port of the discharge uses the advanced manifest information to make the TCMD before the vessel travel. Step 2. Chip cargo checker. The chip checker distributes the tally asset TCMD to the appropriate haze checker aboard vessel just prior to the commencement of the vessel discharge. Cargo identification. As the cargo is discharged from the vessel, the cargo checker identifies the cargo by comparing the TCN, which appears on the top line of the address, marking with the TCN appearing in block 10 of the TCMD. Step 4. Tallying cargo. Using one of the tallying methods previously discussed, the checker enters his cargo count, discrepancy, and comments in the lower portion of the TCMD and fills outline 25 blocks through K. Transshipment point. When the cargo is being checked into or off a ship, the vessel name or the identification number is listed in this block. When cargo is being received into or relocated within the terminal, the appropriate 3-position air or ocean terminal designator is entered in the block A. If actively has not been assigned a code, the name of the locality will be spelled out and not coded. Date received. The Julian date that an incoming shipment is received in the terminal and the checked off the transport mode is entered into this block. Warehouse. The warehouse in which the cargo is stored and the particular way within the warehouse is inserted in this block. If the cargo is left on the pier, then the word pier and the pier number will be entered. Date shipped. The Julian date that a shipment is checked out of the terminal is entered into this block. Mode carrier. The entry recorded in this block provides a record of this means by which the shipment departed the terminal. The entry is spelled out in the clear such as a rail, truck, aircraft, barrage, flight, truck, voyage, document number. Detailed identification of the carrier is established by the entry recorded in the block. Enter the aircraft flight number, vessel voyage number or unit, the bumper number of the military vehicles. When the commercial vehicles are used, enter in the block and the GBL number which authorize the carrier to transport the shipment. Stowage location. An entry is required in this block only when the cargo is being loaded aboard a ship. The entry will consist of a 4-position visual storage location code described Appendix B. Until a checker thoroughly learns the 71 elements of this code, it is recommended that they be reproduced and attached to his clipboard along with the tally sheets, as an accurate entry in this block will be printed on the cargo manifest and other ship's paper and will create difficulty for the discharging terminal. Speed. The block is left blank. Condition. This block is a left blank for cargo checking purpose. A condition entry is made in the lower part of the tally sheet. Signature remark. The cargo checker signature entered in this block. The procedure for TCMD distribution are listed below. Ship side. The head checker aboard ship records his tally and attaches 6 carbon copies of the DD from the shipment unit. Marshalling yard. The shipment checking process is listed below. As the shipment is placed in the warehouse and other storage area, the in-transit storage checker will use 6 copies of DD from the 384 to the conduct his check of the cargo, enter his tally and record the appropriate entry in the block ABC. Then place his signature in block K of the line 26. When the in-transit storage checker has completed his tally, he will dispatch 1 copy of the tally sheet and secure the remaining 5 copies of the cargo. The de-staged copy is returned into the documentation section where it is used to update the terminal's cargo inventory recorded. If a shipment is transferred directly from the ship to truck, rail car or the barrage, the appropriate information should be recorded in the blocks A, B, C, D, F. Block B and C would be left blank. When the cargo is loaded aboard the carrier for shipment to the consignee at the last minute, the cargo checker records his tally on the 5 copy of the DD from the 1384 attached to the cargo and enters the appropriate information on line 27. At this point, the terminal policy may require preparation of the new document to be issued to the carrier as a freed will. The cargo checker may instead obtain the signature of the carrier, detach 1 copy of the DD from the 1384 to be retained in the terminal records and turn the other copies over to the carrier. Consignee. Upon the receipt of the shipment by the consignee, it is again checked for the quantity and condition, and the appropriate information is entered in the block 28 through 31 of DD form 1384 by the consignee, with 1 copy returned to the carrier to the return as a receipt of the delivery. Temporary holding areas. Temporary holding areas may be needed at a certain post depending upon the manpower and equipment ability. A temporary holding area is a warehouse or sacred area used to store cargo on a temporary basis. A temporary holding area is required when the rate of discharge exceeds the capacity of the clearance transportation. A covered area is used whenever possible or available. This is especially important if the cargo is subject to the weather damage or is expected to remain in the terminal area for the expected periods of the time. After considering the consignee of the goods and the facilities available, the commander of the discharging terminal generally establishes holding areas so goods are segregated by the destination and commodity. Segregation by destination is usually the most appropriate method, although the incompatible items such as ammunition and fuel are still segregated on a commonly basis of the safety regions.